Yeah, my name is Ulrich Obrist. I'm a co-director of exhibitions and programs and director of international projects of the Serpentine Gallery. So as far as I understand your question in terms of curating, you were wondering about the role of the curator on...
Yeah, what's your... how do you create shows, or how do you do the styling?
I mean, one of the things which I think is important is that, exhibitions are complex dynamic systems with many feedback loops. And I think, to some extent, it's very, very difficult to sort of, talk sort of about a priori our show, functions and all of that. So the same thing is true for programs. It usually is not something which, happens kind of a priori and then gets illustrated, but it's something which, grows and has almost some form of organic, dimension to it. And this is sort of a learning, system. So obviously, it's always very much related also to, to research. And one of the things certainly which is key, and I think, there is at every given moment in time, there is a necessity also for things to happen and urgency. And I think one of the things of our time which is very, very important is this idea that even if I started, the moment when I started to be in the art world, still in the second part of the 80s, at the very beginning, the art world was still a very sort of Westkunst sort of driven environment. It was very much to do with, Western art. And I think what happened sort of throughout the 90s is that we have a much more polyphonic situation of, polyphony of centers. And to take that into account, it's almost like there's almost a sort of a Fernand Brodelian dimension of a, seismic shift, similarly to what Fernand Brodel describes for the 16th century, where you have all of these sort of shifts from the Mediterranean to the Atlantic or Pacific. We have now all of these new centers with, China and India and many other, centers. And I think that is certainly a very, key component of what right now is urgent and important to do to kind of accompany and also map and show these incredible, new centers. I think we can definitely say that, throughout the 90s, there has been a lot of, time-based work and this idea that almost artists, using time, but almost like they are sculpting with time in some kind of way and using moving images for that. And we have a lot of invention throughout the 90s where we actually have that sort of, more complex approach to the moving image. It is not just a sort of a frontal video projection. I mean, Gabriele Orozco once said that, a video projector just on a big screen or just on a wall is a little bit like the golden frame of the 90s. But I think many artists have actually, worked with it in a much less kind of, academic or sort of framed way and have developed new sort of multi-screen environment, testing all kinds of, moments of non-linearity. And that's obviously very interesting because if you look, I mean, already in the 60s, with the Nouveau Roman and people like Alain Robbe-Grillet, who I think is key for all of this, there has been a lot of, non-linear kind of moments also in terms of the format. And I think in terms of film, obviously, the sort of multi-screen environment which the contemporary art world sort of in the 90s through some artists, protagonists have actually, developed gives a great opportunity to actually experience film in a non-linear kind of way. However, what is interesting is that as of more recently, we can observe that artists maybe after, the 90s having been such a strong focus since the 90s on the moving image, there is a sort of a return also right now of performance. And that's why Philippe Barino and I, are curating this opera for the Manchester Festival. It's called the Tempo del Tocino, Postman Time, where we invite actually many of the artists who have, ever since the 90s been protagonists of this, time-based work to actually do sort of work which has to do with the life, dimension. So this idea of a, non-mediated experience seems to be quite important right now.